stay home. Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 Outbreak movies. For this list, we're delving into the most shocking, upsetting, and, of course, entertaining movies that center around outbreaks and their side effects, be they hordes of bloodthirsty zombies or droves of supply-hungry humans. We will be sticking to films and excluding TV shows or miniseries. Sorry, Rick.
He's dangerous, Rick, and he won't stop.
Number 20, World War Z. If you're a fan of action-packed zombie apocalypse flicks, this 2013 Brad Pitt movie might be right up your street. Following the classic guy trying to find a cure to a zombie pandemic storyline, Pitt plays a former United Nations investigator who finds himself battling through literal walls of zombies.
Coming over the top!
Giving us loads of gripping and ridiculous scenes in equal measure, World War Z takes the hordes of zombies framework and arguably pushes it further than any other Outbreak movie. Zombies use each other as climbing frames to haul themselves over walls and to pluck helicopters out of the sky. Number 19, Carriers. Shifting gears dramatically for this next entry, Carriers is as much about psychological frailty and morality as it is about disease.
Hello?
When a viral pandemic sweeps the United States, Chris Pine's Brian, along with his friends, must keep on moving to survive. Quickly learning that survival of the fittest is the only thing that matters in a world of deadly disease, Carriers makes us question what kind of people we'd become in a dog-eat-dog world. The plot may not be totally original, but it is refreshing to see an Outbreak movie that focuses more on the foibles of humanity rather than the extinction of humankind. Number 18, Blindness. This movie gets points for managing to swerve the raging zombies cliche. Although we do still get mass chaos as a result of the story's more original disease, blindness.
Lucky you can't see it.
It's a video? Well, that's scary. Makes you question what kind of an idiot would play a video in a quarantine for the blind.
When the mysterious, fast-spreading white sickness takes the world by storm, Julianne Moore's character, who is immune to the epidemic, ultimately ends up feeling isolated and struggling to fit in.
I know you can see.
No, I can't. I don't know why you think that.
Don't lie to me.
With an excellent supporting cast that includes Mark Ruffalo and Danny Glover, 2008's Blindness comes at things from a different angle, but shows us that it still doesn't take much for people to turn on each other.
Do not leave this spot.
I know you can do it, but how can you carry the food back on your own?
Number 17, Cabin Fever. Being Eli Roth's directorial feature film debut, this movie very much set the tone for the rest of his movie career. That tone being blood, gore, and a hell of a lot of laughs. Cabin Fever has the disastrous ingredients of a remote setting, clueless college kids, and a flesh-eating virus.
I'm really sick.
And once said virus starts getting passed from person to person, things go a little crazy. Gross, hilarious, and cringy in all the right places. Cabin Fever is a close-quarters thrill ride that will have you screaming at the screen in fear and frustration. Number 16, The Crazies. As the title suggests, this remake of George A. Romero's 1973 film centers around a disease that makes people go crazy.
You lay that gun down.
After a military plane crashes and inadvertently contaminates a town's water supply, people who become infected start to exhibit uncontrollable amounts of rage, turning them into relentless killing machines.
Let me go. Please don't do this.
As a result, there are moments of explosive tension in spades. Spearheaded by a brilliant performance from Timothy Olyphant, the story is clever, the visuals are stunning, and it represents a rare occasion of a remake being infinitely better than the original. Number 15, It Comes at Night. This slow-burning horror about two families trying to live alongside one another in the aftermath of a deadly disease outbreak hits closer to home than most.
Someone's in the house. Someone's in the house. Where? Downstairs.
It's about family and the lengths we'll go to in order to protect them. But wrapped around that is a fight for survival and a lot of paranoia. Showcasing some superb performances by Joel Edgerton and Carmine Jogo, It Comes at Night reminds us that good writing and an effective setting is just as important as kill count.
We just want what's fair. Want enough food? and enough water.
The moments of quiet family time spent around the table in this movie serve up tension that could cut glass.
Can't trust anybody but family.
Number 14, The Andromeda Strain. If you like your Outbreak movies with a dose of old-school extraterrestrial sci-fi paranoia, then you should definitely check out this 1970s thriller.
You're not human! Everybody's dead!
The Andromeda Strain follows a group of scientists who investigate a satellite that crash-landed, killed a town full of people, and may just have brought an alien organism with it. A lot of prodding, experiments, and white-knuckle moments follow.
Most of them died instantly, but a few had time to go quietly nuts.
It offers a highly tense and constantly uncertain atmosphere that's sort of a hybrid of 1979's Alien and 2016's Arrival. Both awesome movies.
Hell of a way to run a hospital.
Number 13, Panic in the Streets. On the surface, this is your standard film noir, with shady characters and even shadier settings. But when the body of an unidentified man is found with pneumonic plague bacteria in his blood cells, things become less about gangsters and more about the role of the US Public Health Service.
What do you make of that tissue, Ben?
I don't know, but I don't like it.
While juggling the ins and outs of wise guy culture, Lieutenant Commander Clinton Reed, along with his health service team, have to trace the unidentified man's steps back to everyone he'd encountered before his death.
Look, if anybody knows anything about him, I'll be at Frank's place right next door.
Who's carrying the bacteria? Who's the guy in the docks? And who killed him?
I sent Vince for a doctor. Vince is gonna bring him here. He's gonna get you well. Ain't gonna get well. Sure you're gonna get well.
Number 12, The Last Man on Earth. Try and imagine what it would be like if Vincent Price were the only man left on Earth, and his daily routine involved killing vampire-like creatures. Well, no need, because that is exactly what The Last Man on Earth is all about. Inspired by the 1954 novel I Am Legend. More on that later. It's a cynical, post-apocalyptic look at how fragile society would become if a plague were to break out.
Wait. That garlic. I'd better put it back where it belongs. I can't live a heartbeat away from hell.
Even though it's from the 60s, this movie still fulfills all the criteria we love to see in things like The Walking Dead. Boarded up houses, survivors banding together, mutated monster-like humans. Plus, it's got Vincent Price in it. What more could you ask for?
Freaks. All of you. All of you freaks. Mutation.
Number 11, I Am Legend. If the idea of a post-apocalyptic world intrigues you, but you want more of a modern twist, then the 2007 movie I Am Legend might just be what you're looking for.
Extreme reaction to UV exposure. Symptoms and tissue samples confirm subject is infected with KV.
It, of course, takes its name from the aforementioned book. Essentially combining the story of The Last Man on Earth with the setting and bravado of 1971's The Omega Man starring Charlton Heston, it's about a man fighting for survival in a desolate New York.
Damn it, Fred!
Will Smith's performance is excellent in this movie, and some of the visuals are absolutely stunning. And of course, it's not short on heartbreaking moments either. Number 10, Outbreak. Unlike some over-the-top Hollywood blockbusters out there, 1995's Outbreak asks the question, what would really happen if a deadly disease found its way into mass populations? Outbreak shows how a virus, carried by a monkey, quickly spreads from one person to the next in a terrifying chaos theory-like manner.
Jimbo? What is it?
And it is pretty terrifying. Rigorously trying to contain the virus, Dustin Hoffman's Colonel Daniels has to battle the relentless spread, people's ignorance towards it, and the military trying to weaponize it. If you're paranoid about this kind of thing, then Outbreak is probably your worst nightmare, but entertaining nonetheless.
We're facing a new strain. What? It spreads like the flu.
Impossible.
Number 9, Shaun of the Dead. From soul-destroying realism, we're moving on to hilarious, creative zombie kills. Shaun of the Dead basically takes every undead Outbreak flick that came before it and rolls it into one pop culture-fueled thrill ride. Starring Simon Pegg and directed by Edgar Wright, the jokes come thick and fast in this zombie movie. But it still packs a surprisingly emotional punch thanks to some outstanding acting.
Are you alright?
And although none of us have lived through a zombie outbreak, it acts as a sort of how-to guide for the average Joe on how to come out the other end. Basically, get you and your friends to a local bar and wait for all of it to blow over.
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, sorry, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
Number 8. Rabid. What's a list of grim apocalyptic worlds without some David Cronenberg? It was a toss-up between this movie and his 1975 flick Shivers, both body horror classics.
You gotta come quick. You gotta come quick and get me.
But we've got to give this one to Rabid, the story of a woman who develops a strange growth under her arm that gives her a bloodlust for everyone and everything, even cows. Stranger still, whoever she pierces with this talon-like thingy becomes a zombie. And so, soon, everyone becomes infected. Nuts from start to finish, Rabid is for those that like Outbreak movies with a bit of a weird twist, and a load of deep metaphorical meaning. Number 7. Wreck. Remade in the US as Quarantine, Wreck is a Spanish found footage horror that sees a reporter and a cameraman trapped inside an apartment building one night. In there with them, people infected by a rabies-like virus. And it spreads fast, making whoever's infected lash out in an uncontrollable murderous rage. For fans of horror, this movie has a bit of everything. A claustrophobic setting, unpredictable twists and turns, and some terrifying night vision POVs. Sure, it's an Outbreak movie at its core, but it is incredibly involving, and it only gets more sinister as the film goes on. Number 6. Train to Busan. You thought being trapped in an apartment building with a disease was bad? Try being trapped on a train. Not only is this South Korean zombie apocalypse movie a great survival story, but it's one of the most gripping action movies you're ever likely to see, period. When a businessman and his daughter board a train to Busan, which suddenly becomes infected with a sweeping pandemic, a violent fight for survival ensues. The film is silly and surreal in all the right places, with drama and shock factor coming thick and fast in every scene. It's totally exaggerated, but wildly entertaining. Number 5. 12 Monkeys. This movie makes you think more than most, with a plot that lingers somewhere between The Terminator, Brazil, and, well, pretty much any other movie based on dystopian futures and time travel.
Get it? Monkey. Monkey. Monkey.
12 Monkeys sees Bruce Willis play a prisoner in the year 2035 who's sent back in time to prevent the spread of a humanity-desolating virus. And as with other time travel movies, things get very confusing very fast.
I am insane, and you are my insanity.
What are the recurring dreams he keeps having? Who's responsible for spreading the virus? Why doesn't anyone believe his story? And what is the deal with Brad Pitt? If you're a fan of the surrealist work of director Terry Gilliam, then be sure to check this out.
Want to hear the monkey speak?
Number 4. Children of Men. Okay, so we've seen all sorts of outbreaks and the resulting side effects so far, but this movie's a little different.
You scared the shit out of me.
I'm sorry about the theatrics, but we had no choice.
It focuses on a future in which mass infertility has led to chaos, and the UK has become a police state. When a refugee reveals that she's pregnant, the first pregnancy in almost 2 decades, various factions hope to use her for their own ends.
Shut up! Trust me, we've got to go.
Clive Owen's Theo is the reluctant hero in this movie. And on top of its enthralling plot, the visuals alone should be enough to inspire you to give it a watch. Alfonso Cuarón's single-shot sequences are awe-inspiring.
We need the baby! We need him! It's a girl.
Number 3. Dawn of the Dead. This is the film that made malls synonymous with the idea of a zombie outbreak. And for good reason. This low-budget George A. Romero movie has become a staple of horror cinema, and is the second film in the Night of the Living Dead series.
What the hell is it?
Looks like a shopping center, one of those big indoor malls.
Following a group of survivors who take refuge from hordes of the undead and other survivors in a shopping mall, this movie is littered with now trademark moments of tension.
Not 100%. But I don't think they'll get through.
These include slow but terrifying pursuits and archetypal survivors with cutthroat agendas. If you're after the quintessential flesh-eating zombie survival movie, then this is the gold standard.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
Number 2. 28 Days Later. This is another extremely low-cost movie, proving that scary and entertaining isn't all about big budgets.
Okay, Jim.
Got some bad news.
Danny Boyle's apocalyptic 28 Days Later sees a frenzy-inducing virus spread by chimpanzees take over Great Britain. And we follow Jim, who wakes up from a coma to discover the aftermath.
Jimmy's infected! No! No! Dead! No! Jim, kill it!
It may play on the usual zombie tropes, with a group of survivors coming together in order to survive, but 28 Days Later is so visceral that it's arguably the most realistic-feeling movie on this list, with a shaky handheld style that puts you right in the action.
And lastly, meet Mela.
It's interesting how all these Outbreak movies focus on something different. Like, some focus on how it affects humanity, while others are just focused on surviving. Our number one is very scientific, I'll say. So, let's check out some honorable mentions, and then we'll find out our number one Outbreak movie.
Oh, so good. You want to taste me? Oh, yeah, you want some of that? Oh, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Here he comes! Stella, Shaun! This book!
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Contagion. We've already talked about movies that give a realistic feel as to how devastating a pandemic can be.
Hey, running? Oh, Beth. Hey.
But there's nothing quite as unrelenting and unforgiving as the 2011 movie Contagion. Featuring multiple intertwining character arcs, each with its own dramatic tale, Contagion doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the horrible effects of a pandemic, famously treating its characters, even the ones portrayed by Hollywood A-listers, with little to no sympathy.
Jory, don't touch anything.
Help me.
From the initial outbreak to the search for a vaccine, this movie is a roller coaster, highlighting just how quickly society can break down given a sudden crisis.
Somewhere in the world, the wrong pig met up with the wrong bat.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.